Off top, the day after the Titanic sank, the Boston Globe led on their front page with Boston Red Sox news. Play music.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
Welcome to the Domonique Foxworth Show. I'm Domonique Foxworth, not on our beautiful set. Charlie Kravitz also not on his beautiful set, but I chose that off top for a reason. Because Steph Curry might have done something crazy last night, and we are not going to talk about it because we recorded it before Steph Curry went out. No?
No, I mean, look, let's give ourselves some credit. You're protecting us for the audience. I landed from a flight back from Detroit 30 minutes ago. You're in Miami. You're in a hotel room. You kicked your wife out of the hotel room. We're giving the people what they want. We're giving them some football stuff. We're bringing David Dennis on to talk about James Harden being an all-time choker. Give yourself some credit. Plus,
I'm not taking any credit away from myself. I think everyone's gonna get a fantastic show. We're honest with you. Sometimes we lose. We got a couple losses in the history of our show, but this is not gonna be a lost show. I just didn't want to be dishonest. Be honest. This is what happened. I'm hoping Steph Curry doesn't go off for 50. I'm hoping it's a dud of the game that's over in the first half and nobody wants to talk about it. I'm hoping no one gets injured. I'm hoping it all goes according to plan so the fans aren't disappointed. But I'm letting them know we getting into football, which is what we love.
I also look, there's all this chatter out there about news being too negative. You know what we're doing? We're bringing you positive news instead of talking about the fact that Little Game James showed up again for the Clippers.
We are talking about that,
and we'll get there.
That's all.
We'll get there.
Like, we're in the beginning of the show.
We're burying it though. We're putting it in the back page.
The back page of the show is not going to be the Titanic. It's going to be something else, some other disaster.
He's a Titanic choker.
I would love to defend him. I've been trying. We'll get to it. All right, you had a great construct for today's show. Do you want to explain it to the good people?
Yeah, so we're gonna do a little segment called Fantasy versus Reality. We both love real football. Domonique obviously knows the X's and O's and the who's impacting the game more than just the skill position players better than most. I love that stuff. I also love fantasy football. I love focusing on the guys who are going to score touchdowns, get a lot of touches, understanding that volume is part of why we watch, for red zone, for seeing guys do cool stuff. And so I have a bunch of fantasy-specific questions, and I'm going to ask Domonique if that aligns or doesn't align with the reality of the situation of, is fantasy off base, or is it leading us somewhere that is actually accurate to who's going to be the more important players this season? The first one I want to start with is the running back position. And that is two guys who were drafted in the first round this year. First round running backs are back in vogue. And it's Ashton, Jeanty, and Omarion Hampton. And there are split thoughts on who would be the better fantasy asset going into the season. Jeanty, because he's got incredible receiving skills. He was drafted so high. He is seen as maybe just a tick below that Saquon Bijan level prospect. We know the Raiders are going to want to run the rock with him. And the other one is Omarion Hampton, who got drafted by the Chargers in a Jim Harbaugh system where we know he's a Big Ten coach. He wants to run, absolutely dominate you, use that big offensive line and run it down their throat. So what I think is that going into this year, we're going to think that Ashton Jeanty is the sexier pick, the sexier prospect. But by the end of the year, we're going to be talking to ourselves being like, well, it was the situation, but Omarion Hampton had the much better season.
Yeah, this is the test. So we have a lot of conversations about running backs when we're talking about football, and so much of it has been focused around how the situation has to be better for it to be worth drafting a running back or acquiring a running back through free agency. And this kind of feels like it may be one of the best, most recent test cases. We know that if you put a great running back in a good situation, it's going to work out. Like we have last year's evidence in just about every other great running back season as evidence that that is true. The question I think here is not will Omarion Hampton play well. I think we all believe he'll play well behind that big offensive line. They added Mekhi Becton to play guard, who's the biggest, most intimidating guard in the league. They have Alt and Slater on the edges. They have a quarterback who's going to attack the defense deep with a big, strong arm, and who's also a running threat, which makes it easier for Hampton to play. But and they got Ladd McConkey, who is seems like he's coming into his own as being a real number one threat. But I think the concerning thing, if you want to like throw a little water on Omarion Hampton fire that we're building on this show right now, is Najee Harris. They went and got. I'm saying a little bit. It's a little. No,
I know.
You knew it was coming. I had to say it.
It's torturing me. It's like it's literally with it's the Najee Harris story. It's a slow death.
Yeah,
a slow death for what you're excited about. Yeah. It's 2.8 yards a pop. In a cloud of dust as you wait for Hampton to become a top 8 back in the back half of the season.
So it's funny because I guess you're bringing from the fantasy perspective. Splitting carries would be the argument against Omarion Hampton because he may have to split carries with Najee Harris early in the season, or he may be splitting throughout the course of the season. And then there's also the risk of potentially just not panning out in the NFL, but I have a hard time imagining that running back skills don't translate. And this is not like some deep empirical study, but I find that the running backs that do not pan out in the NFL are running backs that came from kind of elite situations. And that's not true for Ashton, Jeanty, or Omarion Hampton. Like, both of those guys came from situations, and you watch their plays. They aren't plays that are a result of defenses being scared of a deep threat wide receiver or a result of having the biggest, best offensive line that you've ever watched. Both of these guys are big tackle breakers. And I like Omarion Hampton for those reasons. The pushback would be just the big play ability of Ashton Jeanty, and you combine him with a coach who we know, and Pete Carroll wants to build a team that runs the ball, but Chip Kelly taking over the offense. I think it'll be interesting to see what they're going to do down there. They don't have a terrible offensive line. Like, the left side of their offensive line with Miller and Parham is pretty good. And I think the one thing that I would be interested in, they have a good quarterback now in Geno Smith. Be interested to see how Chip Kelly develops some sort of passing threat, some sort of deep passing threat. You know how I feel about that. You have to be able to take big chunks down the field. And maybe it's with the tight end or the tight end / receiver that they got in the draft. Those combinations might be able to create some mismatches and some pass catching opportunities and some big holes for Ashton Jeanty. But I guess I'd like to hear what you think about Jeanty in that system. Do you assume that it's not going to work because the conditions aren't ideal?
I think it's going to work. I think he's going to be really good. My thought is that he's sort of capped because it's not an elite situation, sort of like we've seen with Saquon and Henry, where I'm sure he's almost definitely going to get close to 300 touches, but I could see it being less efficient than we think. And I think there could be a thing where, from the fantasy perspective, where for the first half of the season, Jeanty has significantly more value than Hampton until that timeshare with Najee Harris gets sort of eliminated, and he becomes in Hampton by like week 9 through 15 in your fantasy playoffs. Hampton becomes like a top 6, top 7 running back as he's fresher in the back half of the year. And I feel like that's one of those things you see with first round running backs sometimes, is that they get, if it's possible, you ease them in to that sort of role. But I'm wondering if, like, they're in the same division, which of these guys do you think is going to be more of an impact player on a team that, like, actually, whether it's spoiler or matters, is going to be, a bigger deal in the back half of the year, this first year?
That's a tough question to answer. I think you tend to want to go with the better quarterback, which I think we all recognize that Herbert, from a talent perspective, is the better quarterback. But Geno, I think, is a bit underappreciated. His ability in that offense, his ability in general. We'll see how it works out in that offense. Could be something that we could be impressed by. I'm really interested in how either of these defenses turn out. I think that'll decide a lot about which team. And I guess this speaks to the waning importance of the running back position. I don't really think whichever one of these running backs is better means their team is going to be better. There was one point in time where that was the case, but I don't feel that way.
I love that. Like, scouting defenses to understand a running back's offensive workload, being like, are you actually going to be able to hold a lead? Are you actually going to be able to run the ball and hold a lead and have your defense be a part of this? All right.
Or are you going to get behind by 14 and then we can't run the ball anymore. So it's all that stuff matters. All right, what's next?
That's one of our producers who's total character, Wahoo's always like, let's just see what happens. Say you lose the coin toss, you kick off, you give up a touchdown, 3 and out, boom, your running back's out of the game. You're down 10-0 before him. Like, oh, okay, cool, got it.
Who's not wrong.
But the second one I got for you, this is all based off a news report. Patrick Mahomes said they're going to unleash the passing game this season. And it has been a while since Patrick Mahomes has been able to support 2 wide receivers. He's been able to support a tight end and a wide receiver a little bit. In the fantasy perspective, like Rashee Rice was a top 10 wide receiver before he went down last year. He obviously closed his rookie season incredibly strong. He's coming back from that PCL tear. Who knows what you'll get from Kelsey? But the interesting one is Worthy. People coming into last season thought that he was the most interesting or important X factor in the entire NFL, because it's like, are we getting a legitimate downfield number 1 from Mahomes? That did not happen. He didn't even get worked in over the course of the year the way that Rice did. Do you think, with Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice and Travis Kelsey, that Mahomes can actually still support multiple starting wide receivers to put up stats?
Yeah,
from a football perspective.
I'd say no. Like, I think Travis Kelsey is not going to be. There's no look to support Travis Kelsey. I think the plan with Travis Kelsey is to get him to the playoffs. I don't think there's going to be entering games like we got to target Travis Kelsey. I imagine he's going to be a situational guy, right? So, like, on certain third downs and pivotal points in the season, they're going to look to find Travis Kelsey there. I don't imagine they're going to go into any game plans this year like, we got to get this guy 5-10 targets a game. There'll be games where Travis Kelsey has 1 or 2 targets, will be my guess. So the question is, a healthy Rashee Rice, if he's healthy and he's back to normal, and I know he's been putting out workout videos, which doesn't move me, but we'll see. He's obviously going to be their number 1, but they still have Hollywood, right? They still have Hollywood. They got Royal in the draft, who's another, who feels like drafting him suggests that maybe they haven't found what they wanted in Xavier Worthy, because he, like, presents the similar to, and I know they drafted him late, so it's a shot in the dark, but he presents a similar type of skill set where
very
you want him
athletic.
you want him to break the defense. And Worthy, when he was most effective early in the season, it was gadget type stuff. So it was this jet sweeps, which is okay. And they, like you mentioned, they didn't work him into the passing attack, but it seemed like, I think his best game of the year was the playoff game against the Bills, and the Bills ran a ton of man coverage. And that's what you want for a guy like Worthy, who ran a 4-2. Like, if you get him in man coverage, his speed alone, and it's not just, when I rewatched all of his targets in that game earlier this year, or earlier today to get ready for this conversation, and I'd forgotten how much man coverage the Bills ran, and the Bills don't have great man coverage corners, but it wasn't even, although he caught some deep passes, it wasn't even his deep speed that was a problem. It was the threat of the over. So, like, he speed over, run that a couple times, and then you whip out of it into like a whip route. And it's just like that threat of speed and man coverage will kill teams. So, all that to say, are you going to force the opponent to get in man coverage, which means you need to be able to run the ball? And it also speaks to their ability to protect Patrick Mahomes, which I knew that you knew we were going to get here at some point. Because Xavier Worthy's speed is like slower developing routes, and the best version of their offense, unleashing the passing attack, was when Patrick Mahomes had the time in the pocket to attack deep downfield. So how the offensive line works out, can they run the ball, and can they protect him, is a big question.
I kind of like that they have something called the Legion of Zoom, too, where it's like, do you remember they had that with the Hardman, Tyreek things? And it's like, obviously this is like the most diet version of that, but I at least like having an idea of that with Royals and Worthy. Royal and Worthy. All right, next one. This one I think is actually fascinating. Oh, sorry, and Hollywood. Yeah. All 3 of them. But is Caleb Williams more likely to be a top 10 quarterback in fantasy or real life this season? And like, let me add this because like, okay, Caleb was one of the most hyped up quarterback prospects in a while, like in the vein of Andrew Luck, Trevor Lawrence, et cetera, and he was okay last year. He was really up and down. His numbers were better than his actual production was. Now he's got Ben Johnson. Now he's got a situation that I think lines up with any elite quarterback in the entire NFL. And I was looking at the fantasy quarterbacks who I don't think he's going to get past. And And like, to me, there are 7 that I think are just almost off the board for him, where it's like the top tier is clearly going to be Allen, Lamar, Jaden Daniels. Those guys are, because I'm serious, because running makes a huge difference.
I know. It's so funny that you're going to slip Jaden Daniels in there.
Oh, no. This is from ADP and fantasy. Those will be the top 3 quarterbacks. And then Jalen Hurts is a lock. Makes me laugh. And then it's Burrow, Baker, and Kyler. And those guys are going to be really hard for Caleb Williams to pass unless he has a season that sort of eclipses what Jared Goff did last year, which is 37 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, that type of guy. Can he be like a 35-plus TD guy in his second year? Because the running threat, although he's athletic, is not quite to the level of those guys. So do you think he'll get there in fantasy or real life first? Because the situation is also set up with Ben Johnson for him to succeed and be an impact player right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fantasy, honestly, which... I'm sorry. No, I think it's real life has a better chance than fantasy because like Jared Goff is the prototype. Like the best version of a season would be, right, is what we got. If we're using Ben Johnson, like the best possible version of a season you can imagine for him coming off of the season he had last year would be, I think, the Jared Goff. Like they both have incredible arms and in this situation would be relying a great deal on running attack and scheme and receivers. And I think that could have big numbers, but it doesn't necessarily lead to the type of production. And to your point, like I think you asked this question, but you know the answer. The answer is if there are running quarterbacks in this, quarterbacks with that ability to run, their value is always going to be higher, and Caleb's not that guy.
Yeah, right now he's 12th in ADP, or projected ADP for fantasy drafts. So that's the 7 guys I mentioned plus Mahomes, Purdy, Kyler Murray, Bo Nix, Justin Herbert, and he's right there. And then Drake May's 13 and Justin Fields 14. Fantasy's weird. Fantasy's weird where if he doesn't rack up the rushing yards and the rushing touchdowns, it kills you. But yeah, I mean, to me, this is one of the most interesting things because it's after the draft, I was like floored by when you just look on paper, the depth chart they've been able to build for Caleb. And it's like Ben Johnson and the Bears leaned in on your maxim for quarterbacks, which is the situation defines who you are. And they're like, okay, let's just change the situation. Let's find an offensive coach that is perfect for him. Let's build out an offensive line and a skill position group that is enough to have this like special talent. If we assume that the talent didn't change from one year to the next, the talent's still there. Let's build something where he can really thrive. And I think that's really fascinating because it's like when that becomes priority number 1 for a team, even if it means you're going to sacrifice things, as there are always trade-offs, if you're not going to prioritize other things through drafts and free agency, long term, that's a fascinating strategy that we haven't seen teams do to this extent.
It's funny because we always talk about how with young quarterbacks you want to take away all the excuses, like all the reasons why things could not work out to really find out what you have. And I think that they've done that, but in the equation that you like put together to determine how good a quarterback it is, it's like their talent, and then it's their situation, which includes coaching and teammates and the defense and their division and like all that stuff. But there's another component that I know you and I have like passed some articles back and forth about, but it's hard to get to the point on. It's like mentality, like the psychological aspect of it, which is something that I guess you can try to decipher, but we haven't really figured out a great way to understand what's really going on inside a quarterback's head. And it's also something that I guess you can work on, but it's not really clear how you work on those things. So, and it's a huge part of it, or at least I don't know if we know how important it is, but I know afterwards, after quarterbacks have success or after they fail, there's always some narrative around their mental toughness is the reason why they got there, or their inability to read and process is the reason why they failed. Whether it's true or false, it is a component that we have trouble kind of evaluating.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, you look at the best quarterbacks and it's like who has the most command of the offense. And often, you know, whether it coincides with the guys with elite physical tools or the guys where the game slows down, like, those guys all, Lamar, Burrow, Mahomes, Allen, have an insane command of what they're doing out there. And that's that processing stuff that's so hard to figure out.
I mean, it's not just the processing stuff. It's also like the mental toughness and like the ability to bounce back from failure. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess in football, God, the failure rate is so unbelievably high. So coming off this, because we're going to pivot to Hunter in a second, but who do you think has more pressure from a former number 1 overall pick this year, Trevor Lawrence or Caleb Williams? This is a strictly actual football one.
I mean, it's definitely Caleb Williams. It doesn't
Okay.
seem.
Just because we're over Trevor Lawrence?
I mean, I think it's Jacksonville 1, and he's already signed his extension, and whether we like it or not, it's pretty clear that they're committed to him. I don't think that there is still a huge question mark around what Caleb Williams is going to become. If this is what Trevor Lawrence is going to become, it was already good enough to get to his second contract. So I don't think that Trevor Lawrence is under any pressure. I don't know what will happen to Trevor Lawrence at the end of the season if he doesn't play well.
Well, let's say not financially. Let's say just reputation-wise, because he's got
I also think that's kind of defined, right? Don't you feel like we know who
so?
Trevor Lawrence is? You still think that, what are we in, year 6 for Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah.
So you think
But you don't think there's any chance he could be like a top of the league 40 touchdown guy if he's got Liam Cohen and Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr. in that division?
I think it's possible. But when you talk about pressure, and I guess maybe this is just like a Rorschach test for both of us, is when you ask me about pressure, I think about the delta between the bottom and the ceiling. And I think that his ceiling is pretty clear where it is. And there's a chance that he could raise it, but the floor also is pretty clear where it is. For Caleb Williams, the ceiling is still incredibly high, and the floor is also very low. And it's still so early in his career that we don't have enough. Like, Trevor's gotten him to the playoffs. Trevor's done enough things that make you feel like he's like an NFL starter. I know a name came into my mind that I'm sure at some point you're going to evoke, but you know what the guy is, and it's pretty damn good.
It's just really interesting because it's like, if this guy who we thought could be like a John Elway type player can't do it with Brian Thomas Jr. and a really good offensive coach and Travis Hunter, then like, all right, dude, cool. This is a lot of hype for nothing. So Travis Hunter coming out of this, he's so unique, and like I don't want to come off like a Travis Hunter hater because he's like one of my favorite college football players I can remember. I think like watching him play, we've talked about this because of when you watch some of his highlights on YouTube, the tape, if you go like the Just the Tape YouTube channel and you watch it, like his brain looks like he's processing so much faster than everyone else that it looks like he knows the plays when he's on defense. And then the things he can do offense, it's like, it looks like when Peter Parker got his powers in Spider-Man and he was like, oh, I can just do a front flip in the end zone. I can just do a gainer. Like things like, he's just crazy athletic. But he's the number 2 pick in the draft. We think he's going to play 70% of the offensive snaps. That's what the Jaguars said. They said he's a person who changes the entire building, all this stuff. Jimmy Stones, their GM, said that. And with that said, I can't think of a top 6 pick wide receiver in the last 20 years other than Jalen Waddle who wasn't coming in as a clear, defined number 1 wide receiver. Let's just say Travis Hunter plays 70% of the plays on offense. From a fantasy perspective, this is important. Do you think he'll be the number 1 wide receiver for the Jags?
I don't. So when you expend as much capital as they did to get him as a player, that is someone who is going to be heavily featured in their offense. He's going to get his touches. He's going to get his targets. He's going to get his attempts. I think you would assume that Brian Thomas Jr. has proven that he deserves those attempts also. And so I guess if it weren't for the fact that Liam Cohen was coming from a situation in Tampa Bay where they felt like they kind of supported Godwin and Evans through that offense, I would feel a little less confident about it. So I don't know. I mean, I assume that it's not going to be a problem to support both those receivers. Like, we've seen offenses produce 2,000-yard receivers in the league. Like, it's not as rare. We've seen lots of offenses with, we can go to the Eagles, who have a couple of good receivers. You can go to the Bucks that I just mentioned and the Dolphins that you talked about. Like, it's not easy, but I think if there's a situation where I feel like they're actually going to take a run at it and they have the coach that's proven that he knows how to do it, like, it feels like that's where I want to lean on it, that it's going to work in this offense.
Yeah. I'm like, I just couldn't be more fascinated. I sort of thought there's a chance he's going to have a season like a high-end number 2 season that we've seen like that. Like, you're talking about like a maybe not to the like peak level of Chris Godwin, but some of the good number 2s like a T. Higgins or Devontae Smith level numbers wise get to like, 1,050 yards and 8 touchdowns and play 40% of the snaps on defense. His yardage prop this year is 650 yards. Does that feel right? That's the betting odds for him, the over-under on it.
That feels right. I mean, I think approach this question just imagining it from two ex-receivers and not even taking into account the reason why they traded all that stuff for him is because he can play both sides of the ball. I think it's really unlikely that he has an incredible, like, true number one receiver type season statistically on the offensive side of the ball, considering that they want him to play defense. He can be impactful without having big numbers. So while I think it's possible, I guess that's me imagining a fully dedicated Travis Hunter to one side of the ball, and that's not what they plan on doing. But I mean, the offense, if they run a very similar offense to what they did in Tampa Bay, like it's a creative offense. It's a lot of motion, surprisingly little play action, despite the fact that they're under center a lot. Which, like, the play action, I think the thing about play action route running is it requires a lot less thinking, I would say, for the receivers. Yeah.
Why?
Well, because the play action, oftentimes, if you're taking shots with play actions, the protection is a little bit more stable, and the routes do not have to adjust to blitzes. They don't have to adjust necessarily to coverages. And, of course, there are situations where it's different. So if you're going to run a comeback, like this is all from my experience in Shanahan offense with the Broncos. It's like we would practice against them all offseason, and so many of the boots and waggles had comebacks on the front side of it. And, of course, the comeback would convert versus cover two, but there wasn't much blitz adjustment because the quarterback's getting out of the pocket, so it doesn't – and the protection is pretty set. So Liam Cohen runs a obviously different type of offense, but it's still a lot of – we got two receivers that we know are going to get the ball. And they didn't do much play action, so you didn't see a whole bunch of that, like Max Pro – we're going to take a shot down the field stuff. So my guess is the offense will require a little bit more thinking, especially if they're going to put him in the slot. The closer you are to the ball, I tend to think you normally are a little bit more in tune with the quarterback because, he's got to get rid of it quickly, and that's where he's looking most of the time.
So that's really interesting. So if you were coach, you try and just make it as easy as possible for him in offense?
I mean, that seems to be – I think we've talked about this a little bit before. I think the mental side of defense is probably harder for a corner than the mental side is as a receiver. And I would not have a situation where Travis Hunter had to adjust to coverages or Travis Hunter had to understand the protections and know when he's hot off of which player. And some offenses don't even have those in them, don't have those reads in them. They keep them simple, but some offenses do. And my guess is the simple thing for Travis Hunter is like, hey, you're a really good athlete. Go run this route. I don't give a what they do. Whatever they do, I don't care. Run this route. This is the route that you're going to.
That's really interesting.
I'm surprised.
I kind of love thinking about that, where it's like, well, I was just thinking about, like, to me, it's like when I didn't think about the fact that when you have play action and you have things that are just easy wins, you can almost ease him in ways that he doesn't have to think about what he's doing out there, so he can maintain, like, the mental energy. So much was thought about, like, this guy's so conditioned, can he play 100 snaps a game? Right. And I didn't think about the purely mental wherewithal of making it easy for him on offense to get the ball in his hands and make plays.
The mental conditioning matters also. And so, like, I know we've talked about it on our show a couple of times, but I think it's important to reiterate that on defense at corner, it's simple to know, like, the 5 to 8 coverages that you might have and the 3 to 4 that you might bring into the game. But the reason why defense is so much more difficult mentally is because your coverage changes based on the formation. So we'll run 43, or something like that, which means that if you get a nub side tight end, or 46. If you get a nub side tight end, then we'll cloud the nub side and run forward to the front side. If there's 2 receivers and no nub side tight end, it's a legitimate base formation, then you'll stay in cover 4. And then you stay in cover 4 and you're kind of reading number 2. You understand if number 2 goes flat, then number 1, you're going to get help from the safety. If number 2 goes vertical, you don't get any help from the safety. And then you take that to each coverage or each zone has that in it. And even if you're just doing man coverage, you understand that, like, all right, this team on this down and distance with this split, the receivers normally run something like this. At this point in the field, the coordinator is accustomed to taking a shot. Or in the red zone, this is who they like to attack. Like, those things every week for a defensive player, like, so many of the plays that you see made when you see, like, commentators say, like, the cornerback ran the route for him, it's because he knows the route, because he studied and prepared. And so for a receiver, I think it's probably important to watch the press technique of the corner that you're going up against, so you can get ready to understand what moves will work and which ones won't. But other than that, it's a lot of like, all right, we're going to run our routes and adjust to this or that.
So this is actually really interesting. Is there any part of you that thinks, I'm not going to say liability because that's crazy for someone who's that talented. He's going to be maybe the best athlete on the field the first snap he plays in the NFL. But is there going to be, over the course of the season, when teams accumulate tape on Travis Hunter and if his playbook is limited on either side of the ball, do you think teams are going to be able to pick on that? Use that against him, being like, okay, he's in the field in this situation. They only run these 3 routes with him. Right. Or he's on defense, like they're only using him as a man corner in these situations. Like, let's get our guy in a situation where he can win against this smaller player.
Yeah. I mean, I think most people would say that, all right, if zone coverage, if you're on the defensive side of the ball, if you're Jaguars defense, if zone coverage requires so much more thinking and reacting, maybe we put them in man more often. I would say man requires some more mental preparation also, but I think less than the zone. But it also wears you out. Man coverage is much more tiring than playing zone coverage. So if you're trying to simplify things for Travis Hunter on offense, I think that makes it harder. But to your point about picking on him, like, yeah, I think it's a possibility. You understand that. I think the way that I would do it if I was Liam Cohen is I would have his routes be complements from the previous week's routes. So, like, if we go into this game all week long, and the previous game, we're running play action with deep overs or play action with whips with him, play action with comebacks with him, I would do that. Then the following week, it would be play action with stutter goes to answer the comebacks, or play actions with, like, a bend on the drag, or also continue to run those routes with them, but use them as a clear out, and then throw it to someone else. Like, I think that's the way that you would have to think about it. If you're gonna limit his route tree to the point where it makes it easier for him, you have to understand when he is going to be the target or when he's going to be the decoy. Or also, like, you learn really early in the games how teams are planning on playing you. So you show a formation that you used the week before and you had success with, you show it early. As soon as you show that formation, the defense has been preparing for whatever you did the prior week that was successful. They are going to show you their plan immediately. It's like, whenever you do this, this is our plan to beat that. And then it's on you to be like, all right, so this is how they're going to beat that. We have to adjust to this in some way. And then you adjust to it. And so that's tough to do with a receiver who is on the field playing corner. It's really tough to say, hey, right now, this is what we're going to do. So, yeah, there's a reason why it's never happened before. It's not because, although Travis Hunter is an incredible athlete, it's not because there's never been an athlete physically capable of doing both. It's because it's really, really, really hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy when you put it that way. Speaking of another receiver, and someone who, going into last year seemed like a sure thing, and he had an okay year, but it was certainly disappointing, Marvin Harrison Jr. Last year, MHJ only got 6.8 targets per game, and they didn't add anyone who should really be threatening him, but Trey McBride's still there, and Kyler loves throwing to him. Jonathan Gannon has said this is going to be a huge year for Marvin Harrison Jr. He's been outright saying, like, you have no idea what he's going to be, like, how prepared he's going to be this season. I think maybe we overestimated last year his whole thing of skipping the entire pre-draft process and not doing showing the physical testing, and maybe he wasn't as prepared as we thought. He was arguing about being, Madden and things like that before the season. But what do you think the upside is for Marvin Harrison Jr.? Can he be like a top of the league wide receiver this year?
You know how much I was in love with Marvin Harrison Jr. Getting into the draft last year, so it pains me to be very wrong about that. Not as much as being wrong about Jeff Okudah, as you all know. Listeners of the show know how that scar has never left me. But the Marvin Harrison scar is growing because I had never been so sure about a receiver until we saw him. The tough thing about it was he looked different.
He looked so different.
He looked
like
different.
The second he wasn't wearing,
Yeah, and there's no way to explain that. And so, like, had the coach speak, like, I think it's important to acknowledge that it's being said, but I don't think it means it doesn't mean anything to me. Like, the coaches say what coaches need to say in that situation. I am not comfortable coming back to say that I know Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be the type of prospect that we expected him to be based on what we saw last year. I hope so. The ability, I don't think, is left. I don't know what the problem is. So it's an unsatisfactory answer, but like, gotta be honest, I don't really know because I don't know what the problem was last year. If I knew what the problem was last year, it'd be easier for me to be like, all right, well, this was the problem and it's not gonna go away, or this was the problem and they've addressed it. I don't know what it was. I can't figure it out.
It's so interesting because like this is make or break. Like there is usually a second year breakout from wide receivers, or I mean, I know that there was the injury for Kyle Pitts, or he'll start getting the Kyle Pitts treatment of like generational prospect. He's like, that guy's okay. And you know, in fantasy, wide receivers loaded. There's Chase, Jefferson, Lamb, Puka, Amon-Ra, Neighbors, Nico, AJ, Brian Thomas Jr. And then you get into this next tier of like Drake London, T. Higgins, maybe Marvin Harrison Jr., Tyreek Hill, Devontae, Ladd McConkey, Worthy. It's like it's so hard to figure out where he belongs in that group.
Yeah, but he's the only one who we know is the number one receiver, right, on that team. And, you know,
I guess Drake too.
Yeah. I don't know. It's worth it depending on what the cost is for him in your fantasy league, but I don't feel too confident about it.
All right, let's do these last couple quarterback ones pretty quickly. I want your snap reaction on this. Better fantasy season next year, CJ Stroud or Bryce Young?
Bryce Young.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy. I was so wrong about that, but I believe it too.
Yeah, I mean, CJ Stroud was my original knee-jerk reaction. Then you look at, like, Bryce Young does better with his legs. He has 6 rushing touchdowns, which is the secret. I mean, not the secret, but it's like the underpinning of good fantasy quarterbacks. And then the passing numbers aren't that different. Like, I think, that's the answer. So you said quick. That was quick.
It's amazing. I love it. Last one on this. We have a term on this show of like the top of the second tier quarterbacks and all those guys who are really good, but they aren't the carry your team quarterbacks. The Lamar, Allen, Mahomes, Burrow, Daniels guys. So likely to be the best Dak this season.
Yeah, I mean
Dak, Goff, Kyler, Purdy, or Herbert. Who's top Dak for you?
I love it. All right, so, I mean, I think I got to go with Dak as the top Dak. I mean, the category was named after Dak, so Dak is going to be the best Dak, right? It's that category of top tier, just at the precipice, like good enough to give you some MVP considerations, but probably not going to put the team on his back and get you to the Super Bowl. So, I don't know. Who do you think? I want to know who your top Dak is. Kyler?
So, I think Jared Goff last year was top Dak.
Yeah, Jared Goff was top Dak.
and like real Dak has Jake Ferguson as a second receiving option, which is definitely tough. I think I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna make the nerds happy and say that I'm predicting Justin Herbert to be top Dak this year.
That's not gonna make the nerds happy because the nerds don't think Justin Herbert is a Dak.
Yeah, they do because they think Dak is better than a Dak.
Well, by our definition of Daks, the nerds would be very pissed because the nerds think Dak is not a Dak, and they think Justin Herbert definitely.
They have a different definition of Dak.
All right, I'm with you. Dak, for me, Dak's the top Dak still, and for you, Justin Herbert's the top Dak. I got Kyler Murray sneaking in as second tier Dak. I don't know if Jared Goff can have a repeat Dak season. He can't double Dak.
Yeah.
It. Oh,
and Purdy needs a bounce Dak season.
I kind of loved it. I wanted to make fun of you, but I kind of loved it. All right, let's bring in David Dennis Jr. so I can try to find a way to defend James Harden in some meager way. All right, welcome in our good friend David Dennis Jr. I want to get to the basketball, but you just expect me not to comment on the jacket in the Star Wars combo? Like, what do you?
I knew it was. I knew it was happening immediately.
It's bait.
Reeled you in. Reeled you in.
I am a fish who sees that hook. Like, no, I don't want it. I'm going to look at it and keep on.
I looked you off. I'm going to make a football analogy. I looked you off and you went, you went for it.
I did. If I would have gone for it, I would have started roast you off the top. What I did was acknowledge that must be bait. You must be trying to trap me. Is that leather? What is going on here?
It's May the 4th. Star Wars. May the 4th be with you.
Is it also like Grease Day? Like, what is it? I don't know why you got the fawn's coat on top.
add a little. So as many years of being an extreme nerd, you got to even it out. You got to have nerd shirt and get a little razzle dazzle in there. Got to let them know you still got it. You know, you can't just fully nerd 100%. You got to give them a little, throw them off. You know.
All right,
Dominique, if you were a real Star Wars guy, you would have yelled, "It's a trap."
You had a shot.
I don't even know what that means. I'm not a real Star Wars guy. I know, Luke, I am your father. I know that. And I know they had that one year where there was like, or that one movie where like some aliens was really had like some black sense and people didn't like that. That's all I really remember.
That's Phantom Menace. Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. The Phantom Menace.
The Phantom Menace to society. Is that what it was?
Yes.
All right, Charlie. That's enough fooling around. You can go ahead and start the hate fest. Start the hate fest.
Having regular season James Harden on your team, it's a trap. So we're taping this on Sunday. We all watch Clippers Nuggets game 7, where the Clippers folded. They folded like the Clippers always do, and James Harden has done so many times in his career. And this is a team that after 4 games in the series, we're like, oh my god, Kawhi Leonard is playing Nikola Jokic to a draw. They have a better roster. They have a really good chance to be a pain in the ass to the Thunder in the next round. They end up, losing game 7 where it's not even particularly close. You have Russell Westbrook hanging on the rim, like yelling at the crowd, being awesome. And Harden is 2 for 8 in this game. And he's now had 7 career game 7s. In those games, he's averaged 19 points, 8 assists on 35% shooting and 23% from 3. Is there any way that I can rationalize this and say that James Harden's not a huge choke artist?
I think that what's closer to reality is he may be the most talented player to be the worst choke artist that we've ever seen, maybe in sports. I mean, there was enough sample size of this. You mentioned the 7 game 7s, but like since the 2020 in that bubble against the Thunder, where he was, I think, 4 for 15, 1 for 9 from 3. They won that game because he blocked Lou Dort and celebrated against a very undermanned Thunder team. He's averaging like 13 points and hasn't shot better than 30% in any of those games. And that doesn't even come into account to the non-game 7s. Like, remember the Spurs game, the game 6 where Pop rested Kawhi, thinking that they were going to play game 7, and he did not show up, and they lost by like 30 points. Like, there is such a track record of this dude not showing up and being too talented to be like this. Like, in games 1 through 3, he's generally really good, and you can't even talk about being worn down because the shots are not even – he's not even taking the shots. Like, this is a mental thing that's bigger than just, like, fatigue or being worn down. Something is just really not working with this dude in these clutch situations.
I've always hated that as analysis to say that a guy was a choke artist, and I've always tried to find ways to defend players in those situations. But we are at a point now where it's really hard. It's such a track record because I think that there's so many variables in any sporting event that if things go wrong in one like important situation, of course, the nerves of the situation are going to get to everyone. Like everybody's a little bit worse. That's why game 7s are always the most ugly games that we get. It's because everybody's a little bit tense and uptight. And so if it happens to a player once or twice, I'm like, all right, whatever. We can explain it away most of the time, especially players at that level who've had great playoff games before, who've been incredible, who've won MVPs, who've had multiple teams on his back. Like, I find it hard to believe that there's anybody that's that good and that accomplished that just gets to a game 7 and all of a sudden it's like, oh no, I can't do it anymore. I can't do the same thing that I've always done. And so like, that's why it just sounds kind of stupid to me when people say that. However, I don't know what, like, it's Charlie makes fun of me because I'm like pro player all the time and that's my general default. And like, I'm honest, like sometimes I'm wrongly pro player, but I'd rather be wrong on that side than wrong on the hater side. But this one, I can't make no argument, man. Like there's nothing I can do.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we're more aligned on this. I am like anti talking about choking. Like I just don't like talking about it because also like I think it frames it as like a lack of heart when there is probably some like real life anxiety attached to these things that we should probably be a little bit more sensitive to.
It feels psychological.
Yeah, it feels like a psychological thing, and I think talking about, they don't have, like, that stuff feels like Neanderthal talk to me, and I resist the idea of choking. But James Harden really makes it hard to do that. Like this dude,
We gotta find a different word. We gotta find a different word.
Something else. We gotta find some like what do you call it, like gentle parenting or something like that you do like to find a way to discuss this. Like you're not grounded. You're taking a peaceful mental timeout. Like whatever, something like we got to do.
I don't think it's better if we say he has performance anxiety.
I think it's a little bit better. I don't know. They don't got pills for that, though. There's no pills for that.
Can I say something? One of the things I've noticed about watching Harden, and I wonder if this, so much has been made of his heliocentric style of play, and that he doesn't sort of play traditional basketball. Seriously, it's like a reinvented genre of I am the offense, I am the sun, all of these things. Like go to your spots. Maybe I'll throw you a pass, or maybe I'll do this. And the way that he performs in Game 7s, it doesn't feel like a team sport athlete, because there are plenty of players who perform worse in Game 7s or elimination games, but they're able to function within a team setting, within an offense in certain ways. The way that he fails, it feels like a solo sport athlete. It actually feels like a golfer or a tennis player, like when you can see Jordan Spieth hit balls in the water over and over again, or Greg Norman not be able to win majors in the US, or a tennis player losing their serve toss and like forgetting how to win a match at the end. And like to me, that's what makes it so unique. It's like this isn't some guy bricking a couple free throws because he gets tense in the moment. Like this is he goes out for a full game where there's this large sample size, and it happens time and time again, and his ability to cope with the pressure of it doesn't seem to be there.
Yeah, because the thing is that what James Harden can do is that he can, like you said, create an offense based on whatever he's doing. Like James Harden has cold games. Like there's games where he can't hit a shot, and the offense still moves because he knows how to adjust to that. Like the thing about these Game 7s is those offenses come to a standstill. Like he's not running the offense functionally, which is a total different problem than I think it'd be different if he goes out there and he's like 7 for 22, can't hit shots, things like that. Like that's different. That's sort of a normal tense Game 7. 8 shots and like an offense that just cannot function because he has stopped being able to figure it out in the way that he does second nature for years. Like that's the thing that's most confounding about it.
He recedes too, which is the thing that's confusing to me, is because it doesn't feel like there's a couple different ways to think about how this could come to be. It's like one is you're so nervous that you get cold, or the moment's so big that you miss shots, or you're trying too hard. Like that's one way that could go. It feels like in so many of these situations, it's like there's like a anxiety is the word that you use, and I don't want to like pretend like I'm psychoanalyzing James Harden, but it's like a step back, which is a different way than I think about like the choking. Why? The
It's
step
James
back.
Harden with the step back. There you go.
Step back, yeah.
I saw Charlie start grinning, and I was like, "Did I do something? What did I say?" But yeah, I guess. But I guess that's the part is weird. Is it doesn't feel like, because if I were in this situation and it was the reputation, and I'm just assuming like the reputation was like, you can't get it done in the big moments. Like I feel like the way that I would fail in that situation, if I were to fail in that situation, is like go down shooting.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't seem to do that, where he just kind of takes a step back, which speaks to some sort of paralysis that like none of us can decipher or particularly understand. But that's what to your point, Charlie, that's what makes it feel like a solo sport athlete and feel like it's more mental than physical.
And like worth noting here, totally, like that's exactly right. And he has scored fewer than 20 points in 12 of his 26 elimination games, including 7 of his last 13. Okay, Curry in his 14. I'm just going to hazard a guess that we'll get to 15 on it tonight. It's happened once. He scored fewer than 20 points. Durant has also gone under 20 one time. LeBron James in 29 elimination games has never gone under 20. So, like, what's happening with Harden of a player, I'm not saying he's as good as Durant, LeBron, or KD. Obviously, he is not historically, but he's still, top 50, top 40 player of all time. Someone of that caliber, it's actually pretty rare that he's had this issue closing out games and playing in elimination spots.
Yeah, and what even makes it weird is this like sort of predates MVP Harden. Like I still think that Thunder series against the Heat way back in 2012, James Harden, like if he plays even remote, like half as well as he played, because you got to think about how they got to that
Spurs.
finals. They got to that. They beat the Spurs, like an all-time great team. They beat the Spurs because James Harden went off on the, and then you show up and you look at this team. You got Durant, you got Westbrook, prime athlete Westbrook, and if Harden, I think, plays half as good as that, that is an actual series instead of them losing in 5. Like, he played some atrocious basketball there because he was supposed to be holding that second lineup coming off the bench, and he gave them nothing that whole series. And it goes all the way back to then, and that was the entire series of being bad, not just the end of that series.
If they had the Magic Johnson Trophy for the Western Conference MVP, he wins that going into the finals.
Yeah.
Over Durant and Westbrook, which is crazy to think about now.
Well, let's go ahead and retroactively award it to him because I don't think he's gonna get the Larry O.B. or the Magic Johnson going for it, or the Larry Bird on the other side. He's not gonna get that. I mean, if Bill Russell is for the finals, he's not getting none of that.
If they're good enough to sweep somebody, you don't have any games 5, 6, or 7s. I think you could, there you go.
Good point.
Yeah.
Well, this brings us something really interesting I want to ask you about the Clippers moving forward, because now we're doing a sort of an exit interview for them. But we've sort of waited for Kawhi to be healthy in a postseason for the Clippers and the team to look really good. And it actually happened this year. He was awesome. And the team played their best basketball down the stretch, and he was able to handle big minutes. And they have this amazing development story with Zubac, which, like, we all liked his post game. We didn't realize he'd be a potential all defense level player and like a legitimate number 2 or 3 on a very good team. And they have Kawhi, who's under contract. So coming out this series, it's obviously disappointing, but should the Clippers feel good about having the chance to build a championship caliber team around Kawhi with having this underpaid number 2 and maybe being able to move some pieces in a nice bench?
Can we just, I hope that Kawhi Leonard sent James Harden some edible arrangements today for the fact that he had 7 points, because we're only talking about James Harden choking it and not the fact Kawhi Leonard gave him nothing also in Game 7. Like, you got to think about, there's a 6-year stretch now since they won the championship where he's been injured for most of the time, but this is the second Game 7 collapse that Kawhi Leonard has been a part of. Like, let's not forget that he also was in that bubble and blew like a 20-point lead to the same Nuggets team and had that same sort of lethargic performance in Game 7. In a must-win situation, they blew a 3-1 lead, and now they have a series where they lose in 7 to the Nuggets. They should have won like 2 more of these games. They should have won Game 1. They couldn't get an inbound pass. They had 20 turnovers. They should have won when they came back, and it was a last-second tip-in. Like, they smoked this series from the beginning all the way to the end, not just Game 7. And Kawhi Leonard, who everybody was saying, a lot of people say, Perkins calling him Kawhi Leonard Jordan or whatever, and they're saying this dude's playing 40 minutes a game, and he's supposed to be the best player on the Clippers. He also folded and rolled over. And you play this guy half a season so that he can show up in Game 7s like this. And I'm not sure how many more years that you can expect Kawhi Leonard to come into a playoff looking like this going forward. This was probably, to me, this feels like the Clippers' best shot.
Yeah, and I mean, James Harden's his poor game saved us from criticizing Kawhi today, but it also saved us from discussing Kawhi's injury in the next series or the series after that. Like, that was always a thing that held me back from getting on this Clippers bandwagon that seemed to be amassing some momentum. Was like, look, guys, he ain't getting healthier. If he playing fresh right now, like, I get the feeling that eventually it's going to catch up to him, but we didn't get a chance for it to catch up to him. But yeah, I don't think there's much to be excited about for the Clippers' future, given that all their players, or their best player, I guess Zoo is the lone building block. I don't know how they find someone.
I mean, you can't build. Are you building a team around Zubac? Like,
no.
He sort of was built to play with James Harden. Like, he's kind of one of those bigs. I mean, and James Harden has a few of these throughout his career. These bigs who are maximized by playing with him. Zubac also just happens to be really great defensively and plays particularly well against Jokic. Like, that was a showcase thing for him. But you're not building a team around Zubac, and you got to find a second option.
So just to zag a tiny bit, like, I kind of thought Kawhi was the only Clipper who really showed up in that game. Not that he was great, but he was pretty efficient. And he had 22 points and, like, at least was there when they were keeping the game close in the first half. But for me, it's like, I wonder if it's like, do you have 2 years where you can build around Kawhi, where you hope he's healthy? You're like, this is the first time I felt explosive, because you do have 2 of the pieces, and like Zubac being that good offensively and being able to be very good defensively is pretty unique for that build of center. Well, normally when you see stubby white guy. You're not thinking he's gonna be able to protect the rim.
But I mean, they didn't build around Kawhi this year. Like this was not a build around Kawhi year. Like this was
they built around Kawhi not being there.
Right. They built they built around him not being there, and it was actually like James Harden's like redemption year. Really, like this team was expected to not do anything. Harden and some of guys getting lost in the shuffle here is Norm Powell, who was up for a most improved player at the first half of the season. They thought he should be an all-star. And they really saved the season. They didn't build around Kawhi this year, right? Yeah. So, like, they built around, let's stay healthy enough to get in the playoffs and crack it so that Kawhi Leonard, what we're seeing is a Kawhi Leonard who can be explosive in 30 games and come in the playoffs. And, like, that's not sustainable. That's really not sustainable. You can't. It's hard to build a team that's good enough to where your best, highest-paid player can miss literally 45 games in the season and you can show up and, like, be a title contender. Like, that really just happens if you're like the Durant Warriors. Like that's just not something that you can bank on when you're a Clippers team.
Yeah, I already expressed my feelings. I don't really have hope for this team going forward. Like I didn't have much hope for them this year. I think it would have been fun if we could have got a healthy run at OKC with them, but yeah, I don't see it being a better situation next year. And I guess maybe to your point, Charlie, they'll make some off-season decisions that are built around Kawhi, but that means Kawhi is going to play the whole season. Like, yeah, this doesn't feel like the beginning of something or even the middle of something. It feels like the end of something.
Yeah, I'm always interested by that because, like, they have everyone under contract except for Ben Simmons and Amir Coffey. And, like, a lot of those are good tradable contracts that people are going to want. So it's like, to me, they might be have more flexibility than we realize with this team. And I'm assuming they're going to move Harden. I just am. Like, that, to me, this feels like his last game as a Clipper.
But I mean, but like Harden sustains your regular season. Like that's what's difficult about Harden. Like Harden is the guy who can get you some wins in the regular season and put you in a position to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a good point. It'll be really interesting. All right, last question I have about this coming out. We should talk about the winners a tiny bit. And look, betting lines have the Thunder as a minus 900 favorite against the Nuggets in the second round, and I get that they were incredible in the first round. While the Nuggets have this quick turnaround, they're going to play this juggernaut OKC team. Did you give Jokic and the Nuggets, who figured something out by the end of the series where everyone was playing a lot better, any chance against this Thunder team?
Nope. I don't. I mean, I've been trying to like work my way into it, like that this could be a series. I've looked at, when the Nuggets beat them at the last time they played, and Jokic is making the MVP argument. They shot 56% from three. They made a million threes. They were hot. They scored 140 points. The Thunder had just beaten them a couple days before. Like where my issue stands with this whole thing is like even if you get best of all time Jokic, right? Say game one, Jokic comes out. He's 42, 18, and 8, right? And he plays 42 minutes. And say he's a plus 13 in those minutes, right? There's a good chance that the Nuggets are going to be a minus 18 in the 6 minutes he sits out. Like that's there's just nothing you can do for the fact that Jokic at some point is going to have to get on that bench, and the Nuggets are going to fall off a cliff against the OKC Thunder team.
Yeah, Charlie and I have had this conversation before early in the playoffs just about a player being so good, like a single player, an all-time great player being so good that he can drag a much less talented team to a series win. I think we came to the conclusion that he can drag a team to a couple games. He's not going to be able to drag him to a whole series win. So, like, there will be a Jokic game where we're just like, damn, Jokic put him on his back. It was nothing anybody could do at him. And we're going to be like, damn, that guy's so good. But he's not going to be able to do it 4 times before OKC wins 4 games. Like, they won this first series without their best player, essentially. Like, SGA was not the best version of himself. So if you get a better version of SGA or not, I don't think that
maybe
they have a chance.
I feel like the only chance, and honestly, like, I feel like what we're going to get from Jokic, which is awesome, and whatever the game dictates, it's like it needs like vintage playoff Jamal Murray, like that game 6 or game 5 43-point Jamal Murray type of explosion where, OKC has all these guards. Like any guard they're going to put on the floor is going to be able to defensively be a huge problem for Murray, whether it's, Dort, Jalen Williams, Wallace, SGA, Caruso, all those guys are like nightmare matchups on paper for Murray. But if he, is all world playoff Jamal Murray, who's hitting a ton of threes, maybe they have a chance of making this a series.
Aaron Gordon's the key.
Yeah, good luck. There's a lot of guys.
MPJ.
Yeah.
Michael Bertans Jr. needs to be Michael Porter Jr.
Russell Westbrook needs to be Thunder Russell Westbrook. Like, he needs to put on the Thunder uniform and just go. Like, I mean, there's a lot of guys who can score against the Thunder. I think that could have caused them some problems, right?
Yeah.
Like, athletic, skinny wing is like the least of their concerns. Like, there's the one guy that they can defend and give a really hard time no matter what. I just don't think we're going to get that kind of Jamal Murray game. Like, Jamal Murray may have peaked against the Clippers.
I'm proud of you, Charlie. I'm proud of you. As soon as he said Russell put on a Thunder uniform, I saw your brain start working. You got it all excited, and you swallowed whatever bad joke that you had cooked up in your mind. So I'm proud of you. Good job. Way to go.
I'm learning. I'm learning when to, not force the bad joke and take a back seat sometimes. It's growth.
Well, good for you. Glad that you are showing some growth. Hopefully OKC shows some growth. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't have any perfect segue to get out of here. Just, let
you
the
should
fourth be with you, right?
There we go. There we go.
Close it out with some Star Wars foolishness. R2-D2. I know that. All right, thanks a lot, David. This was great. Charlie, I appreciate you. Thanks to all the great producers, and we out.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.